Ever wonder why so much software, even from really brilliant teams, just falls flat? Well, it turns out there's been a fundamental flaw in how we've been building things for decades. Today, we're going to tear that flaw apart, drawing from the ideas in the book, The Broken Telephone, and look at how AI and a whole new type of engineer are, believe it or not, finally starting to fix it. I mean, Steve Jobs nailed it years ago, right? Start with the customer experience and work your way back to the tech. That's supposed to be the golden rule, the North Star for everything we build. But here's the kicker. What if that's all just a nice idea? What really happens when the person literally writing the code is stuck at the end of a long, long chain of command, completely cut off from the person they're building for? Well, you get this. The whole system starts to work just like that old kids' game telephone, where the message gets more and more distorted with every single person it passes through. And this isn't about people having bad intentions. It's a structural problem baked into how most tech companies are built. All right, so let's get into it. Let's break down exactly how this system is practically designed to fail. And it's really important to remember, this is not about blaming individuals. It's about a fundamentally broken process. Let me paint a picture for you, one you've probably lived through yourself. You've got a customer who is absolutely furious. He needs to export his invoices into Excel for his accountant, and tax season is looming. It's urgent. So a month later, after the engineering team pulls off this heroic effort, the feature ships, and it's completely useless. Why? Because the date format is wrong for the accountant's software. An entire month of work, just gone. So, how on earth does that happen? It happens through a series of translations. The customer tells the sales team what he needs. Sales, focused on how urgent it is, tells the product team. Product, focused on writing down the requirements, tells the design team. And design, focused on making it easy to use, hands a final spec over to development. And at every single one of those handoffs, a little piece of the original context, the why, just gets lost. And here's the wild part. You can actually put a number on this loss. Let's be generous and say 70% of the context makes it through each step. Well, after those 4 translations, less than a quarter of the customer's actual problem, their frustration, their real goal, actually makes it to the developer. It's no wonder we end up building the wrong thing. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this what the product owner is for? Aren't they supposed to be the voice of the customer and stop this exact thing from happening? Well, in theory, absolutely. But in practice, it's a very different story. You see, the very role that was meant to be the bridge between the customer and the code has in many places become the main operator of the broken telephone. They spend their days turning requests from stakeholders into Jira tickets, managing backlogs, and protecting the engineering team from, distractions, like actually talking to customers. They've become professional ticket translators. And listen, this is not a knock on their talent. It's a total system failure. Just look at this data. Less than half of product owners feel like they truly understand their customers. Only about a third feel confident enough to jump into technical discussions. And get this, only 1 in 4 feels like they actually have the authority to make real product decisions. They're set up to fail. So this all boils down to one critical difference in mindset. The system pushes everyone towards output thinking. Build the feature, ship the thing. But what we desperately need is outcome thinking. Solve the actual problem. The customer never really wanted an Excel export. He wanted to get through tax season without pulling his hair out. And that is a completely different problem to solve. But here's the good news. This entire broken system, it's starting to crumble. There are 2 massive forces converging right now that are forcing everyone to completely rethink how we build software. First, companies are getting flatter. Big players are cutting out layers of middle management just so they can move faster. That right there eliminates a lot of those translation roles. And second, AI is making the act of writing code unbelievably fast and cheap. The bottleneck is no longer how to build something. And so, in this new world, a new kind of professional is taking center stage, one who is perfectly built to thrive while others are left scrambling, the product engineer. So let's rewind and go back to our Excel story, but this time, let's introduce a product engineer. We'll call her Wei. The same request comes in. Now, in the old system, this would kick off a painful, multi-week, 80-hour project that was doomed from the start. But Wei, she does something totally different. She doesn't wait for a perfectly written ticket. She just hops on a 15-minute call directly with the customer. She completely bypasses the broken telephone. She hears the actual frustration in the customer's voice, and she keeps asking why until she gets to the real goal. making tax season less stressful. So, armed with that deep understanding, she sits down with an AI coding assistant and quickly builds what the customer actually needed. Not some complicated export feature, but a dead simple widget on his dashboard showing quarterly tax totals. The total time from that first conversation to a deployed solution, 12 hours. The customer, as you can imagine, is absolutely thrilled. And this little story is a perfect example of what's called the product engineer multiplier effect. Look, it's not about working 10 times harder or longer. It's about delivering 10 times the value because you solved the right problem, way faster. She spent a fraction of the hours to create massively more impact. So what you're seeing here is a fundamentally different job description. A traditional software engineer, they're often measured on things like code quality and performance. But a product engineer is measured on user adoption and business impact. One rarely talks to a customer, the other does it all the time. It's a huge shift from owning features to owning outcome. So what does this mean for the companies themselves? Well, this isn't just about hiring for a new role with a cool title. It really requires a fundamental change in how the whole organization is designed. On the left, you've got the old model, these deep, separate silos for each department. Information has to slowly crawl up one silo and down another, losing a bit of context at every single step. But on the right, that's the new model, a small, collaborative triad where product, engineering, and design all work together as one team, totally focused on the same outcome. And that right there is the real takeaway. The rise of the product engineer isn't just a new trend. It's a sign of a much bigger philosophical shift. Companies are literally redesigning themselves from the ground up to finally kill the broken telephone once and for all. Which, of course, leads to a pretty big question for all of us. Those layers of management and translation that define so many careers for so long, they're being squeezed out by flatter org charts and automated by AI. So, the question is, where are you going to provide value in this new world? Because at the end of the day, the game has completely changed. For decades, the hardest part of building software was just building it, the implementation. But now, AI is making that part cheap and fast. The new bottleneck, the single most valuable skill in the next era of technology, isn't being able to build. It's knowing what's worth building in the first place.